Show a little class, man. Holy shit. Congratulations.
Makes sense. The gods have cursed you in every other way.
On November 8, 2023, doing an investors earning call, Warner Bros. Discovery President and CEO David Zsalav said the following.
Our focus is on transforming our biggest franchises from largely console and PC-based games, with 3-4-year release schedules, to include more always-on gameplay through live services, multi-platform, and free-to-play extensions, with the goal to have more players spending more time on more platforms.
3 months later, Rocksteady Studios' Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League marks that initial step in Warner Bros. Live service transformation. After grappling with a challenging development phase and a notably negative pre-release reception, it's now available for a broader audience to evaluate. Based on initial Steam chart numbers, it's currently peaked at an all-time high of 13,000 players, a fraction of games released in that same time period like Grand Blue Fantasy Relink and Persona 3 Reload. Although both games have sizable fan bases, it's noteworthy how Suicide Squad falls short in comparison. Measured against 2015's Batman Arkham Knight, Rocksteady's previous release with a controversial PC port, Kill the Justice League has registered less than half of its all-time peak player count. Suicide Squad's unfortunate start has completely undermined David Zasalav's strategy, because the extension of games with live service elements is ultimately contingent on the existence of a substantial player base to begin with, something that this game, based on initial sales data, doesn't have. But the question is whether Suicide Squad deserves better. No. Given the caliber of the development team in this ultimate outcome, Kill the Justice League stands as the most disheartening video game release I've experienced to date. Throughout an extensive 13-hour playthrough encompassing a variety of side content to final credits crawl, I struggle to envision an audience that would embrace Rocksteady's latest venture. Although I appreciate the desire to break away from their fan-favourite Arkham series to try something new, the outcome falls short of the high standard the team is known for. Furthermore, Suicide Squad fails to offer a wholly distinctive experience to what's out there. For a developer that once raised the bar with each new release, Kill the Justice League demonstrates they're also capable of delivering titles that fall far below the standards set by industry peers. The simple fact of the matter is this. Suicide Squad was conceived with the intent of being extended for several years post-release, and yet it lacks the fun factor to sustain itself for more than several minutes. I'm going to speak from my point of view of someone who usually avoids live service games, although I've recently been researching them for upcoming projects. In conversing with genre enthusiasts and even showing Suicide Squad off over streaming, I can say that the game won't satisfy fans of looting and shooting. The character building aspect lacks the robustness expected in a game of this nature, and the weapons generated fail to offer the variety needed to foster intriguing playstyles. The RPG elements unfortunately come across as half-baked, revealing Rocksteady's struggle to strike a balance between genre expectations and their usual strengths. If Suicide Squad aimed to persuade Arkham fans to embrace live service games, it falls short in making a compelling case. Moreover, it fails to captivate potential new fans for Rocksteady. So why set high expectations in the first place? Well, I adore the Batman Arkham games. Despite facing criticism over the years for simplifying gameplay in action titles, they're still incredibly well-made AAA adventures and the absolute best adaptations of their source material. Instead of meticulously capturing every detail of Batman's history, they adeptly translate his appeal from a passive reading medium to an engaging playable one. This has been evidenced since Rocksteady's first foray into the character, marking it as one of the most remarkable sophomore efforts in video games. Where previous Batman ventures would focus either on his combat, investigation, or his suite of gadgets, Batman Arkham Asylum deftly balanced all three, offering a dynamic gameplay experience that seamlessly transitions between different roles for the Caped Crusader. One oft-overlooked aspect contributing to its enduring appeal is its scaled-down approach to design. With only 6 main areas to explore connected by simple overworlds, content is modular and handcrafted. Each room of the asylum is lovingly decorated, usually has one big set piece and then smaller activities to solve. Despite the overarching storyline, players have the freedom to diverge from the main path at any point to engage in Riddler challenges and side stories. It's a design reminiscent of Nintendo's later Metroid games, where players always know the way ahead but have plenty of reason to explore. All of this is to build a fantasy of Batman in a die-hard-like situation, navigating vents, improvising solutions, and strategically overcoming formidable adversaries by leveraging his weaknesses as strengths. It just so happens that his foes are masters of the madhouse, using their unique abilities to raise the stakes and shift gameplay expectations. The only iconic Batman elements missing from this adventure were a drivable Batmobile and the backdrop of Gotham City, which were eventually introduced in Arkham City and then Arkham Knight. A contentious aspect of later Batman Arkham releases lies in the expectation that Batman should be in a larger urban environment, leading to expansive gameplay zones and less dynamic activities. Particularly in Arkham Knight, that game draws inspiration from Ubisoft-style open worlds, adopting templated and repetitive content where identical gameplay is mirrored across varied environments. For instance, segments of Knight's Gotham may include tank combat, militia outpost removal, a Firefly chase, and a Riddler race, resembling other subsections of the island. While these additions provide extensive content for players, they contribute to a more overt, gamified feel, and the sheer repetitiveness within the larger open world can be overwhelming, deterring completionist tendencies. Regrettably, Suicide Squad intensifies Batman's move towards maximalism, but ends up being more watered down. Despite offering 4 distinct playable characters, all activities in the game follow the same pattern. Go to a location, engage in minutes of shooting enemies, receive a loot drop, and repeat. The premise of Suicide Squad begins with intriguing potential. The 4 central characters, comprising returning Arkhamverse figures Harley Quinn and Deadshot, alongside newcomers Captain Boomerang and King Shark, find themselves thrust into a David and Goliath situation akin to Batman's past challenges. Devoid of inherent superpowers, Task Force X confronts corrupted versions of the Justice League, including Batman, with heightened negative traits and enhanced superpowers. Combined to the chaos unfolding solely in Metropolis, explosive devices in their necks prevent them from leaving the city, and strict play arenas during activities. Their mission entails thwarting the League and their puppet master Brainiac to safeguard the world and potentially reduce their prison sentences. Similar to Arkham, the narrative pits depowered characters against unsurmountable odds, pushing the need to improvise as plans comically go out the window. It also offers a unique twist on the conventional superhero game. Instead of attempting to adapt Superman's array of extraordinary powers into a standard open-world console game, the narrative flips the script, portraying him as a formidable adversary that the player must overcome. Having him turned evil by Brainiac also serves as the player's justification for not feeling too guilty about eliminating a beloved comic book icon.
Not so funny now, is it, dickhead?
In the premise, however, belies the big issue at the heart of the concept. The returning Arkham characters primarily rely on firearms, and the central action in Suicide Squad revolves around shooting, whether it's up-close engagements with pistols or long-range sniping. There's an absence of Predator stealth, puzzle solving, or diversified vehicle sections to introduce variety to gameplay challenges. Now, don't get me wrong, I like shooters, and my intent isn't to criticize Suicide Squad merely because shooting is integral to its design, much like I wouldn't fault Mario for predominantly involving jumping. However, the notable lack of creativity in combat is striking, particularly considering Rocksteady's esteemed reputation. Encounters often devolve into horde mode scenarios, sometimes themed as control point battles, loot collection at a stationary bank, or routine enemy elimination tasks. The adversaries encompass melee combatants, snipers, heavy hitters, and sporadic attack helicopters. Unlike games such as Doom 2016, where straightforward elements shine in compact arenas, dealing with enemies in Suicide Squad feels somewhat sluggish, with an overwhelming numbers of spongy opponents diminishing the overall combat experience. While attempts at flanking enemies and coordinating with co-op players are present, shooting enemies becomes noticeably mindless after a few minutes. This is all the more thankless when your reward for these activities is guns of varying loot rarity. Returning to Arkham comparisons, the game's treatment of the supporting cast is remarkably gamified. Villains from previous games and beyond serve as your support team, and that's essentially their role. Their primary function revolves around selling you new weapons, tweaking their stats, and incorporating elemental effects. In a series that previously introduced fun and engaging additions to your arsenal with each unlock, such as inverted takedowns or remote control batarangs, the shift to having players analyze tiny percentage points and cooldowns is undeniably dull. It's regrettable because there are glimpses of Rocksteady's playful ingenuity that manage to shine through. The central cadence of combat involves initiating melee attacks to propel enemies into the air, enabling a subsequent barrage of bullets. This same maneuver also allows for tearing off and restoring shields, keeping you in the action for longer. The traversal mechanics are also novel, with each character possessing a distinctive method to cover vast distances. Extending travel has a rhythm reminiscent of the gliding in Rocksteady's earlier Batman games, with one standout example being Harley Quinn's Spider-Man-like grappling hook, offering an enjoyable experience in mastering the timing of a substantial swing, descent, double jump, and subsequent swing.
Always wanted to do this. Let's go.
During these instances, Suicide Squad evokes positive comparisons to Insomniac's 2014 game Sunset Overdrive. A fusion of Jet Set Radio and Saints Row, its expressive movement, whimsical weapons, and funky aesthetic has planted itself in the nostalgia of gamers as a hidden gem. However, as enjoyable as the navigation was, it failed to compensate for the formulaic nature of its third-person shooting, which still constituted 70% of its playtime. While it was innovative in a period where taking shots from static cover was the standard, the gaming landscape has since shifted in the opposite direction. No longer an anomaly, Sunset Overdrive lacked enduring design elements to fortify it today. Like Suicide Squad also, it never justified having such a massive open world. This brings us back to the recurring problem of the Arkham games. While successful live service titles can exist without an open world format, Rocksteady's reputation for pushing boundaries in scale and detail compelled Suicide Squad to become their most expansive game yet. Instead of discrete arenas tailored for specific challenges, which would have been a far better fit for a live service looter shooter like this, in-world locations are quickly morphed into play zones, necessitating the flattening of challenges to adapt to almost any surface. This approach allows the developers to seamlessly add similar activities into random locations in the future, and new members of the Suicide Squad will be suitably equipped to navigate these surroundings. The consequence is a diminishment of potential. Ironically, Kill the Justice League's somewhat subdued art direction aligns with this intent. 2015's Arkham Knight, designed to unfold over a single night in a heavy rainstorm, featured surfaces with glistening, rain-slick specularity, creating an awe-inspiring aesthetic reminiscent of classic Batman films. In contrast, Suicide Squad impressively simulates various times of day and weather conditions, but this achievement comes at the expense of aiming for a more subdued realism. It's noteworthy that comparisons between Arkham Knight's graphics and those of Suicide Squad often favour the former, despite the nearly decade-sized time difference. It encapsulates the two games quite aptly. One was meticulously crafted for a singular, tailored experience, whereas the other necessitates flexibility to accommodate years of ongoing content. Attributing the entirety of the blame to Warner Bros. And David Zsalav becomes challenging when looking at the fundamental design flaws of Suicide Squad. A glance at the game's credits revealed that this wasn't the effort of a fresh team of junior programmers. Instead, it was the next venture from the core team responsible for the Arkham series. Having excelled in creating AAA single-player experiences, the ambition might have been to replicate that success in the realm of multiplayer, surpassing titles like Destiny and Warframe. However, this pursuit came at the cost of goodwill cultivated with Arkham fans, the potential of the Justice League, and perhaps even the longevity of their studio. I haven't delved much into the game's plot because your mileage is going to vary wildly. The alterations to the canon of the Arkham games and the unconventional treatment of DC characters are undeniably eyebrow-raising, but they align with the tone of a game centered around convicts unleashed to eliminate the Justice League. But on a more fundamental level, the most glaring issue with the plot is that the characters lack proactivity. The Suicide Squad merely observes the unfolding events and becomes saviors of the world only when no one else is left to intervene. This unfortunately aligns with the gameplay dynamic, where you diligently complete missions and undertake grunt work until an opportunity arises to confront a boss. At that point, the game reveals that it was just one of multiple enemies to eliminate, consistently undermining your achievements and encouraging a continuous grind. To give away the game's biggest spoiler, the revelation of a multiverse serves as a prominent warning that additional worlds exist featuring the same monotonous activities to undertake, further undermining your efforts on this one Earth.
Oh, you guys!
So what lies ahead for Suicide Squad and Rocksteady Studios? In an era where games undergo prolonged development cycles spanning years, producers are opting to water down content by transforming them into lengthy grinder games. AAA single-player experiences like Arkham Asylum no longer align with the preferences of CEOs like David Zsalav, and this has inspired a successful Metroidvanias in the AA space, as seen in titles like Metroid Dread and Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. Instead of downsizing development to create numerous smaller games, offering multiple bets on the table, publishers are going all in on single mega-sized projects. Developers are tasked with discovering the fun over years of production, hoping the game resonates with an audience committed to playing and spending on it every day for the next decade. For Suicide Squad, the competition includes heavyweights like Fortnite, Destiny, and Warframe, a battle it's unlikely to win due to its £60 price tag, lack of a free-to-play model, and relatively brief 13 hours of content. In pursuit of this audience, the game has alienated fans of the Arkham series, and individuals like me who are willing to give a new game from the studio a chance. In a year already dominated by stories of beloved studios being gutted by enormous publishers chasing profitable earnings reports, I worry for Rocksteady's future prospects. Entire studios have faced downsizing or closure following a single underwhelming game. Exemplified by Volition and the Saints Row reboot, the developers of Forspoken, and Ascendant Studios, creators of Immortals of Avium. Even a developer as renowned as Rocksteady is not immune to these challenges. Despite my dissatisfaction with Suicide Squad, I hope that Rocksteady secures an opportunity to create something else, even if the most optimistic scenario sees them exclusively crafting content for Suicide Squad, mirroring Bungie's exclusive focus on Destiny updates. So while Suicide Squad may not warrant a more favourable fate, the individuals responsible for its creation certainly do. I just hope that this is one venture they come back from unscathed.